Were you saying something?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you. I can hear some background noise as well, but I can hear you.
Is the background noise very loud?
It's as loud as your voice.
That
Okay,
doesn't help.
maybe your voice is a little louder. Yeah.
Oh, so I think I should speak loud.
Yeah, definitely. I think if you speak louder, we should be in good shape. As long as you speak louder, so that you can kind of be louder than the background noise.
Okay, okay. So since the 12 us, I think it's a Friday evening. So um, so people haven't joined us, but I think we should just start and record it anyway. So can you hear me?
Yep.
So we usually do these on Tuesdays, but because you had given an availability for Friday, I was like, oh, okay, we'll just do it and record it. Which state are you based in?
I'm in New York.
Oh, nice. How long have you been there?
6 years now.
And what's where you originally from?
Where was I before New York?
Yeah.
I was in Philadelphia in Pennsylvania.
Okay. I think I'll just jump into my questions, I guess. I think I think the first thing, of course, is like I don't like to do introductions for people or read too much about people. But I think you can give the best introduction in yourself. So I don't know, like just to know a bit about yourself, your background, um, and yeah, your education. Like how did you find yourself doing on?
So an introduction about me, my background, and how did I get where I am.
Yeah, just
Cool.
yeah.
Yeah, but my name is Jim Ngokwey. I'm managing partner at Mighty Peace Coffee. We're a social impact coffee importer. We have offices in Congo and in America. I'm in America. I'm in New York. Uh, some of my partners from Mighty Peace Coffee, two of them are in the Midwest in Wisconsin. We also have Linda Mugaruka, who's based in Bukavu, and she's our chief quality officer as an agronomist by training. So that's kind of our team. And the name Mighty Peace Coffee comes from a belief that coffee can be a vehicle for job creation, development, and peace in Congo. Because a lot of the times the conflict we see in the region is because of extreme poverty. We believe people can earn a good living through coffee. We can reduce some of these conflicts and issues. So that's our mission for Mighty Peace Coffee. Coffee, the vehicle for job creation, wealth, development, and peace. And personally, I'm Congolese. I moved to America when I was 17. I finished high school in New York. I'm 36 now, so I've been here a long time.
Half
And
your life.
pardon me, exactly. Even a little more, yeah. And yes, I went to college in Philadelphia. Studied communication, broadcasting to be specific, with a minor in business marketing. And part of that is initially I wanted to be a journalist. I really thought, I'm from Congo. I'm an American now, and whenever I read the news about Congo, they only focus on certain things. Like the only stories they want to tell about Congo are war, corruption, dictators, and all that. Those things may be true, but there's more to Congo than that, right? So I always wanted to maybe write new stories. So that's why I had communication, and but also had a business minor because I understood that it's not just about writing new stories. You have to do new things. And I think business is the way to make the change more sustainable. I think sometimes people want to do stuff for Congo or Africa. They think about charity, but I think a business, as long as your business is efficient, operates well, you can have an impact. I've always wanted to work in business, so that was my minor in undergrad. And then a couple of years later, I went to grad school to get an MBA, learn more about business, expand my knowledge, and also my network and connections. Had different corporate jobs working in marketing, in healthcare and in e-commerce, in media. So I worked for Time Out, eBay, and Siemens. Just they were interesting jobs. I enjoyed them, but they weren't fulfilling because because I really wanted to work in Congo specifically, or find a way to work to impact Congo somehow. And so while I was doing those jobs, I was also doing some pro bono consulting with the African Chamber of Commerce, learn more about business in Africa. And then through that, I
Is
also
the is that the African Chamber of Commerce based in Africa or
it was based in Pennsylvania. It was based in Pennsylvania. The founders were from Kenya and South Africa. Yeah, the founders were from Kenya and South Africa. Yeah, I do agree, Grace. There is some background noise. I don't know where it's coming from. But actually, I don't hear it anymore. That's good. Um, oh, look at that. But yeah, so the Chamber of Commerce was founded by a gentleman and a woman from South Africa and Kenya, respectively. So it was based in Pennsylvania, but the idea was to basically connect people in America that want to do business in Africa with opportunities there. So trade missions and things like that. So my goals there were to support the investment desk and also push the team to basically support my trade trip to Congo. And I was there for a few weeks. I was in Kinshasa, Matadi, and just doing a lot of research, talking to folks in Lubumbashi and Goma as well, and just to kind of understand what are the opportunities in Congo, what are the industries that Congolese people can invest in to create jobs in Congo. And the feedback was, the report. I wrote a report focusing on energy and agriculture because that was the feedback. Of those two industries, Congo can, I'm sure we've all heard it. Congo has enough energy to power all of Africa, and Congo has enough, the great arable land to feed all of Africa. And I think, I've heard that since I was a kid, and frankly, I don't care to hear that anymore because it doesn't matter about the potential if the reality is different. We can talk about electrifying all of Africa, but in Kinshasa, the capital, more people still don't have clean water or regular energy. So the potential doesn't really matter, right? So the idea was, how do we go beyond talking about potential to actually real concrete execution? And my goal was to bring investors back with me from New York to Congo. It didn't work out because, again, the State Department said Congo is not safe for Americans. So kind of going back to that issue of narrative, like people are afraid of Congo because of what they keep hearing. And again, there are places in Congo that aren't safe. That's the reality. We can't run from that. But I'm in New York City, and there are places that aren't safe in New York either. There's some neighborhoods. I think the city is very safe. There's some neighborhoods I just wouldn't go to. It just wouldn't be wise. And I wish people were able to kind of have that same nuance understanding when it came to Congo, that that some places are not safe. There are pockets of conflict, but a lot of Congolese live in Congo and are able to go about their lives and build futures, right? So it was really around kind of changing that narrative and removing some fears. But long story short, did that report, and I was able to bring investors with me, but I was able to connect with one of my co-founders at Mighty Peace Coffee, JD Steer. He produced a documentary around the mining sector in Congo and supply chain transparency. And I helped him get the word out because I was part of an organization called Young African MBAs. And we wanted to basically help connect him with other people that were Africans in America that were working in business. Because again, we all share that idea that through business, you can make change. Because a lot of change, you need money. So the idea is to get people that study business, that work in businesses, that work for those big tech companies that use Congo's minerals. They can over time make an impact because they care about what's happening in Congo and they understand business. So that was the idea, kind of get the word out that way. It was successful to a degree. Got some good feedback overall. And I think Apple and Intel issued press releases, basically agreeing that they're going to clean up the supply chain because a lot of their minerals, come from Congo. Well, like the coltan you need to kind of make sure that the chips work fast and things like that. So got some good feedback press wise here, but the feedback in Congo was, we need jobs. It's good that you're doing this advocacy, this filmmaking and sharing our stories and trying to get people to care. But what we need more than anything is jobs. We have great coffee here. People are so afraid of Congo, they don't want to buy it from us. So if you want to help us find buyers for our coffee. So that was really the conversation that led to the creation of Mighty Peace Coffee. That was in August 2018, and we're 4 years in now. We've been growing every year and really introducing Congolese coffee to American coffee drinkers.
nice? So sorry, the background noise is actually
Oh,
coming
that was
from
from
my
you.
yeah. I feel like I've had such a long day and it's been back to back, so I didn't have time to get home. So I had to take this from yeah. So I'm so sorry about that,
It's
guys.
all good. It's all good. I think,
Um,
Yeah.
Yeah, but I really love. I mean, there's so many questions that came up as we were going along. I think, but the first one is, it's. I think it would come as a surprise to a lot of people that coffee is even grown in Congo. They can produce coffee in Congo. So, which regions in Congo can you find coffee?
So you can actually find coffee in most of Congo. I think 70% of Congo's territory is good for coffee, except the copper belt. So except, like the parts of Katanga where there's a lot of copper mining, there's not a lot of coffee there. But everywhere else, whether it's, Congo Central, Equateur, Kasai, Ituri, that you can have coffee there. And right now, all of our coffee comes from North and South Kivu, but we know there's great coffee everywhere. So eventually, as we grow and we identify new great coffee suppliers in Congo, well, the plan is to eventually get coffee from everywhere. But right now, it only comes from North and South Kivu, Mighty Peace Coffee. There's great coffee in Ituri again, Congo Central, even parts of like Northern Katanga, Kasai, everywhere. Basically, there's coffee, and the coffee we import is Arabica coffee, and that's specialty high quality coffee, and that's found mostly in the eastern parts of Congo, so Ituri, North Kivu, South Kivu. That's where we found the Arabica. But the other places that I mentioned have coffee, they have Robusta coffee, and you can find Robusta basically across the rest of the country. And the Arabica, it grows in that parts because of the high elevation. So usually you need like a high mountain range and things like that. So that's why that coffee. That's why, for example, like the coffee besides Congo, like Kenya has a lot of coffee, Ethiopia, Rwanda, Burundi, Uganda, and it's because of the elevation in the mountains is where that Arabica coffee comes from. But the Robusta, you don't need like tall mountains. You don't need the high elevation, high altitude. So that's part of why also you can have Robusta pretty much everywhere in Congo except the Copper Belt.
Wow, this is actually really interesting. But I think before, like, because now I have so many questions on coffee itself. But I think I want to know, like, what exactly do you do with 96 coffee? So how does it work? Um, from like the entire process, the business model.
So what we do is we import green coffee. So the coffee before you get in your cup, it's basically like it's green. It's coming from a cherry, and the way it's processed in Congo, and you basically process it at a washing station. You get a green coffee bean. It looks green before it's processed, in the consuming country usually. And the reason why a lot of the roasting the process by which you basically roast the coffee. Like for the coffee to be a beverage you can drink, you have to roast it. And usually that happens in America and Europe and countries where they drink the coffee because the coffee tastes better if you drink it within like a few months of roasting it. That's why, for freshness perspective, a lot of the roasting happens here. Um, and by here, I mean, like the Western, the countries that drink coffee regularly. Because even though we have coffee in Congo, most Congolese don't drink coffee. And I think eventually it will be great to, I think for the economy to grow, the coffee industry to grow, we'll need more people locally to drink coffee. But I digress. To answer your question, though, so we have the green coffee in Congo. The way it works is we work with smallholder producers and cooperatives, and we basically our team in Congo. Linda, I mentioned, is an agronomist and our chief quality officer. What she does, she works with the cooperatives to basically identify how to make sure the soil is healthy, when to pick the cherry, how to know it's ripe, how to sort it so that's as good as possible. So a lot of quality control work. And then from then, once she approves, says, hey, the coffee's good, we'll basically package it in containers and jute bags and grain pro bags, and we put it on a container on a truck to we used to ship through Kenya, but since the pandemic, the port of Kenya has been very hard to get coffee out of in a timely manner. So now we ship through Tanzania. So our coffee leaves from a truck in Goma and goes from Goma to Rwanda to Tanzania and the port of Dar es Salaam. And from Dar es Salaam, it's put on a ship. And that ship goes usually, there's different routes. Sometimes the ship goes from Tanzania to India, from India to New York, or Tanzania to Spain, and then from Spain to New York. It's about a 2.5 month trip. Yeah, so that's and when it comes here, we warehouse the coffee in New Jersey and Texas, in Houston, in California, Oakland, and in Seattle, the Green Room. And the idea, we have the warehouses in all these places, so any coffee company, depending on where they are in America, they have an easy way to access our coffee. So we import it and we sell it. Yeah, so we import the green coffee and sell it to coffee roasters across the U.S., Canada as well, but mostly the U.S.
Okay, yeah, that was my next question. So you only do the US and then a little bit of Canada.
Exactly, and we're open to growing. I've talked with people in South Korea and Japan, China, and the UK as well. So there's definitely the plan is to grow eventually beyond the US. But right now, the US is still the biggest market, and that's where we're based. So that's why it's our focus. But eventually, we know that our coffee can be appreciated globally, not just the US, but everywhere where people drink coffee.
It's so amazing. So, in terms of the co-op that you work with, um, do you so before you came in, or before Mighty Peace Coffee came into your sister co-op, how were they operating, and how have you been like? How have you helped them? I can put it that way.
Can you repeat the question one more time?
So I was saying, in terms of the cooperatives that you work with, um, how were they operating before Mighty Peace Coffee started assisting them, and then how have you helped them?
So the way we help them is definitely with quality control. We help with quality control and as marketing. I think a key challenge is a lot of people don't know about Congo, and those that do don't know Congo as coffee, and those that do know Congo as coffee, they don't trust the coffee will be good because it's from Congo. So it's a vicious cycle, right? So it's really helping tell the story and helping basically get people to trust that Congo can produce good coffee consistently year in and year out. So that's and even before we were here, they were already selling coffee, but for the most part, selling to Europe, and some of them were selling into America, but not at the same scale. Because most other coffee companies in America that import coffee, like they'll import from Brazil, Colombia, Vietnam, basically they'll import from like 30 different countries, and Congo will be one of the 30. Whereas us, all we do is Congo only. So we're able to basically import a lot more Congolese coffee specialty than anybody else in America. So we rapidly became the biggest buyer of specialty Congolese coffee in America.
And how many cooperatives are you working with?
We're currently working with four, and our goal is to basically add more every year. So when we're able to find people that our team in Congo trusts, they're receptive to our quality control feedback. Eventually, we'll do a small trial. Maybe we'll start with like 20 bags, and each bag is 60 kilos and 20 bags. And then if we get if the feedback from the consumers here is good, we'll double that and eventually buy full containers. Each container has 320 bags, that's 19 tons. Yeah.
So in the cooperatives, how many farmers are in within one
It
cooperative?
depends. That's a really good question. Depending on where they are, it depends on the size. But for example, on the smaller side, you can have 2,000 members, and on the larger side, you can have 11,000 members. And basically, like the farmers put themselves in cooperatives so they can basically share costs. So they can share costs and share efficiencies because it's hard if you're mostly smallholder farmer. It's hard to compete if you're a small farmer. You can only basically produce 2 bags a year. It's hard for you to compete at scale. But if you and a few hundred people get together, you can sell to people like us and others. So the cooperative have a few thousand members, and we personally work with about a 300 per container.
Like that's so amazing. I wasn't expecting like such a high like number. So it's like you just think of the impact that you have if you're able to assist even just four cooperatives with how many like the ripple effect or the multiply effect of the families that are impacted with the work that you do. Actually, it's quite amazing. Um, I think so. Uh,
I saw a
so
question from Grace and Bisha in the chat. Do we buy back any of the roasted coffee? We do not. We do not. Sometimes, I will buy a bag for personal consumption. For example, we sell to, Joe Coffee, New York City. I'll go there and buy a bag and, taste it. But, we don't buy back the roasted coffee at scale, if that was the question. Yeah,
do you? Oh, thank you for that.
sure.
And then what, like, who are you currently the signed the green? If you're able to disclose them, but the green who do you supply them to
What,
currently?
what are the companies we supply to?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're currently supplying to more than 200 companies. So I'll say in New York City, we work with a company called Joe Coffee. Also, Say Coffee. Say Coffee was voted best coffee company in America last year. So we use the Joe Coffee and Say in New York. In California, we work with the Copa Vida, Earth Cafe. So yeah, it's a lot of unless you drink specialty coffee, they may not be they're not Starbucks. We definitely deal with more the boutique coffee companies and about 200 of them. Yeah.
Have you ever considered working like for example with coffee roasters in Africa? So for example South Africa or any other country, I guess North Africa. Have you ever considered that?
No, but interestingly, I think maybe a month ago, I connected with somebody from South Africa, a fellow Congolese, was telling me, asking me about coffee, and that basically like they're looking for good quality coffee in South Africa. So there may be an opportunity soon. So we're definitely open to that. South Africa is really the only other African country that I know that there's been some serious interest in buying our coffee. But even in America, though, there are some African-owned coffee companies. There's one actually owned by a Congolese in Arizona that's a client of ours, kind of like coffee. There's also a few companies owned by Nigerian and Ghanaian immigrants, so we do have those as clients as well. But in terms of African roasters in Africa, the South Africa seems to be the one we made the most real conversations, but it's still very early in the stage though.
Yeah, because I think there's quite a big coffee culture in South Africa. So this is, I think this is an interesting to see. And then in terms of, I think you always like also when you go into like your Starbucks and whatever, you see a lot of fair trade coffee or on your coffee on the coffee pack, you see a lot of producers. I don't know if it's called them the producers or the manufacturers talking about the fair trade coffee. For like anyone who doesn't understand why are they putting that um, on their product, and what's the reality of the current? Because I think I know a little bit about it, but I think this I personally believe there's not a lot of awareness on what how the coffee growers or what's the word, how they're treated, and how they're exploited. So if you could just like elaborate more on why fair trade is important, and even what you guys are doing at Nike Coffee, how do you ensure that the growers are empowered and not exploited?
It's a great question, and the way we're able to verify is because we have a team on the ground. So we're literally able to see in person, like meet the producers and farmers in person, but also like kind of double check, hey, did you get paid on time? How much did you get paid, and things like that. So we're able to verify to make sure that what we say we pay, you can actually confirm that that's the right amount and it's true, and there's no dishonesty there. So I think the fact that we're underground allows us to verify that. Because coffee, I mean, just taking a step back for quick, perspective, coffee was literally built on exploitation. The industry first, was slaves in Asia, Africa, and Latin America and the Caribbean. So like Haiti and Brazil were the biggest producers. Brazil is still number one, but that was built on the backs of enslaved Africans. And then when it came to Africa, it was through colonization. Besides Ethiopia, of course, because coffee is native to there. Besides Ethiopia, a lot of the other coffee, production that's killed in Africa is basically through colonization. In Kenya, the British colonized and things like that. So historically, coffee was built to exploit black and brown people, pay them not at all or as little as possible. So the industry itself, is built to exploit. And people are trying to change that, in 2022. It's not like it was in 1822, but there's still, exploitation is part of the system. And so things like fair trade matter because even though it's not perfect, it guarantees that farmers got paid a minimum amount, at least they got paid at least a certain amount, right? Because without that, you can get people that actually lose money producing coffee. And that's a big problem now. People talk about the coffee price crisis. Is basically the sense that a lot of farmers actually lose money in coffee because they don't get paid enough. And that's why those things like fair trade matters. And all of our coffee is certified fair trade and fair trade organic. And again, it's not perfect, but at least it guarantees that farmers got paid a minimum, and we pay more than that minimum. But at least with fair trade, people know that that a certain threshold was reached, and it's important because historically, again, it was built to exploit people, and nobody wants to knowingly do that, right? So that's why if you have that certification, it eases your conscience a little bit. Like at least again, maybe I can't go to Congo myself and verify, but at least they have this paper, so I know that they follow these rules. Yeah.
But how much of that is greenwashing? Um, so I don't know if you know the term. So it's like for
You say how
example,
much of that is greenwashing?
yeah, um, like
Great
you see,
question.
like with H&M, when they talk about sustainability, but like I mean, the reality is different. And so, how much of that do you think is actual real fair trade?
It's a great question. I mean, to actually have like to legally have the fair trade certificate, you have to pay. Like they have to inspect your facilities and double check your books to make sure that people are paid this way and that. So that unless you're literally breaking the law, like there's a certain like bare minimum you have to meet for fair trade. So I think but I was thinking fair trade is not perfect because sometimes the bare minimum is not enough. Like you can still, let's say it's $1.40. For a lot of people, you're still very poor if that's all you make for growing coffee, right? So I think there's a lot of greenwashing, but it's hard to know for sure who's doing it unless you're inside the company. So if somebody has a question about Mighty Peace Coffee, I can answer all the questions about when people are paid, how much they're paid, how do we verify and things like that. But I can't say that for another company. So I think, and because people aren't always transparent, there's room for a lot of greenwashing. People throw things like ethical, sustainable. What does that even mean, right? So then people can say what they want, and I think you just have to either expect or hope they're honest. And but if they're not, it's really hard for the average person to know if people that say they're ethical really are ethical. It's hard, unless you work there. Like there's really no way to know. Yeah, but there's a
But
greenwashing. I'm sure there is. Yeah.
I trust that you're ethical.
No, we definitely not. Definitely not. No, for us, I mean, we were literally built to address that, right? So we were built to address
Yeah,
that. We definitely like the people come first at Mighty Peace Coffee. Yeah. So because without the people, there's no coffee industry anyway. So making sure farmers are paid well, paid on time. Because we think again, if we were built to have an impact in the coffee community, like the people have to come first. Yeah. So yeah.
very true. So you have two people who trust. Um, so from what I understand, what you explained before, so how it would work, please correct me if I'm wrong. So you have the green, is it the green bean that you said that
Yep.
would do it. So the farm, I guess, would pick that from the tree, then they'll take it to be washed, put it in the bag, it's imported to you, or it's imported to the US, and then that's when it's roasted to become a coffee bean. So when I look at like the rest of the food supply chain, you find that the end consumer and the farmer are the ones that pay the highest price in terms of the cost of food. So the farmer is getting really low, and then in between the value chain, there's a lot of margin. Um, do you think that's the case with coffee as well? Where the farmer could be getting more and the consumer also could be paying less, but there's a lot of exploitation in the middle, or like how does it work in coffee, or is that a challenge?
I think there's definitely room for the farmer to be paid more, but not a lot of room for a customer to pay less because the coffee right now is very cheap. And I think if it's even though there's a lot of margin in between, from when the coffee's on the farm to when it's in your cup, everybody complains that they don't make any money. They say their margins are too thin. Like farmers say they're too thin, co-ops say they're too thin, we say they're too thin, roasters say they're too thin, right? And so the consensus, or at least a joke, is that people that make money or the trucking companies, shipping companies, and banks, because everybody else, the margins are very thin because it costs money, like the financing money, the interest you have to pay, and how long it takes for the coffee to get here. You still have to, you already put the money up front, and it takes like 2.5 months for your coffee to get here. And for roasters, they have to pay people to roast the coffee. If you have a cafe, you have to pay baristas. And in America, I mean, there's a big, Starbucks there. Their baristas are on strike right now in some cities because they feel like they're not paid enough, and they're trying to create a union. So I think there's definitely a big difference in how much coffee is how much people spend for coffee in a consuming country versus a producing country. There's also a lot of costs in between. It's expensive to transport coffee across oceans, across countries, across continents, and everybody in there, whether you're a trucking company, a shipping company, you're a warehouse, like you have a operation, you have people to pay. So the margin definitely, it all adds up. And people, again, it's a $400 billion industry. There's a lot of money, but everybody I talk to that's not a bank or a trucking company says we make no money. So I think so I do think I think we definitely need to be able to communicate the value better, so the end user is willing to pay more, and they understand that they're not paying more to make us richer, but they're paying us more because it costs more to get the coffee here. We want to make sure farmers are paid and everybody along the line, especially with like fuel prices. Like it's gotten very expensive, yeah. But the coffee should definitely be more expensive. and the end consumer should definitely pay more for coffee. Yeah.
I think it's a good model that you have, that you're working with the more specialty coffee companies there, because um, I think people who understand coffee will need to pay more for good quality coffee.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
Grace had a question. The area you choose to export coffee from, is it because it could easily be transported? I know that road availability is a challenge in Congo.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So part of the reason why is, first, the coffee people that told us at the beginning when I was talking about how we find Mighty Peace Coffee, they were from South Kivu, Ijwi in particular. So that's part of the reason why our first coffees came from that region, and also in terms of the coffee quality. For the coffee quality, I mentioned there's a lot of mountains and elevation in that high elevation in that region, and also the soil is very different because of the volcano, and a lot of the countries that produce the best coffee, they have volcanic soil. So that soil as well, the soil, the environment, the weather, the weather in North and South Kivu is different than in Congo Central, for example. So it's more suitable for that kind of specialty coffee. So that's why we're there. And the fact, and you're totally right, the roads are a challenge. So that's definitely a struggle we face. But the good thing, I put air quotes, is, because it's also close to bordering countries, we're able to get to a port quickly. So let's say, for example, that coffee came from Kasai Central, where I'm from myself. If the coffee came from Kasai, it will be really hard to get it out because the roads aren't great, and if you have to go to the Atlantic Ocean, you have to kind of rely on Congolese roads. Whereas if we're where we are, we rely on Rwandan roads, Tanzanian roads, which are better than our roads. You know what I mean? So ideally, as we talk about, as we think about, our us, being able to export coffee from everywhere in Congo, the infrastructure will be important. So to get coffee from Equateur, like I think in terms of development, they have the least investment there. Like the coffee is good, but if there's no roads there, it's a problem, right? So for Congo to definitely reach its potential as a coffee producing country, the roads will be a big problem. That's why until then, like the areas that will be best known internationally will be the ones that are near borders. So that's why now it's like North and South Kivu. And also think there's a lot of potential for the coffee from Congo Central and Back Congo because it's right next to the Atlantic Ocean, and it's you're able to export much more rapidly. But any coffee that comes from like central Congo, like the actual interior, will be very hard because the infrastructure is not really there.
I think leading on like onto that question, I think I always ask this question is, do you receive any support from the Congolese government, or have you? Oh yes, thank you.
Mhm.
Sorry. Have you received any support from the Congolese government? Is there any kind of um, lobbying, or what I don't want to call it, but like kind of, for example, with infrastructure, you have people that you like. I know they know that it needs to be done, but are you guys in any way connected with the government?
At the moment, not yet. We're still very new. I know, for example, there was a Journée Mondiale du Café Cacao a few weeks ago in Bukavu, and we supported that. So whenever they do events like this, we'll support and be present. Like our team there will go there. If they need sponsors, whenever we can, we will sponsor and things like that. But in terms of asking for support, we have not. I think that there are like organizations that are there to kind of facilitate that, and eventually we probably will be more involved. But as of now, we've kind of strayed away from that. I think there's a lot of work to be done, and we're still a very small team. We're still a very small company, and we're still focused on importing and selling. We really have not committed any resources to government lobbying, but we know eventually it will be important. But there are other great organizations locally that are focused on that, and eventually we'd like to be able to support them. But as of now, we have not asked. We have not lobbied the government at this stage. But maybe eventually we will. Yeah.
So, initial funding, did you bootstrap? Did you have an investment, an investor? How did that
Boot,
work?
yeah, it was bootstrap. So it was basically a mixture of friends, family, grant, as well as local small institutions that are there to support entrepreneurs, like incubators, entrepreneurship incubators. Again, none of us are rich, right? So when I say friends and family, like our families didn't give us a lot of money, but it was somebody here gives you $200, somebody gives you $1,000, and things like that. You add up, and then we're able to buy the first container. And then after that, we were able to kind of show the sales traction and get people that had more money to give us that. So then it went aside away from friends and family to more so extended networks of people that, you know what, I'm part of this incubator. We support entrepreneurs that do this, that, and the third. You know, here's a $30,000 grant, for example, and things like that. So it's been really bootstrap, friends and family, and grants whenever we can. We still apply for grants. We're always looking for people to invest and loan. But it's tough though. It's tough for multiple reasons because again, coffee I mentioned takes a few months for the coffee to get here, but you have to pay for the money up front. So there's always a gap between when you spend money and when you get your money back. And also people are afraid of Congo. That's the reality. It's like, oh, you work where in Congo? Okay, let's think about it. So the industry is tough. Working in Congo is tough, and people are afraid of it. So it's been hard to get like the big institutional financing. So it's been very bootstrap grants and coffee specific finance. Yeah,
I respect anyone who goes about starting a business that way. I think it's really admirable. And to think that you could have taken the easy way out. Like you said, you worked in corporate. I mean, could have been like, I don't know, doing something and you know you've got a guaranteed salary. But I really like, I just want to like, I can feel that like there's a passion about what you're doing, and you're not just in it for the money. So I think like, I don't know if the grace, those graces can sense that as well. But like, I really admire what you're doing.
thank you.
Like I said, for anyone to bootstrap it, to bootstrap anything. I mean, it shows that you're in it, like you're in the arena. You're not just
Yeah,
out there like, it's easy. Like, I mean, I'm probably still there where you can like, you're in a comfortable place and you're far from Congo and you can be like, oh, Congo this person. But to actually be doing the work, I think, like, hats off to you.
thank you.
I saw Grace had a question, another one. Can companies succeed without government support in Congo?
It's a great question. I mean, so far we're succeeding, so I'd say yes, but also we're still a small business. So, and I think as we grow, eventually we'll need to kind of be more proactive about engaging government so that they can make sure that it's more people want to do business in Congo. So eventually, I think we'll need to be more involved in that. But I think it's possible. It's probably harder if you're not well connected and things like that. But it's a challenge. It's a challenge. And but I say right now we have not engaged them yet. So we are, but we know eventually for the skill we want to reach, we'll need to have a good relationship with the government to basically help them understand, what the sector needs to grow so that more people like us want to invest in Congo and work in Congo. Yeah.
There's another question. I'm just curious to know the process you went through to show proof of sale.
So for the first, so our first container, I mentioned every container is 320 bags. The first time we didn't have enough money because we reverse bootstrap, so we had the full container come with 50 bags. And so what we did is when we bought the coffee and while it was on the way here, we were basically the way we showed proof of sales once it sold out was to show a contract. So somebody said, "Yeah, I want 5 bags." We'll send them a contract, and this is, you know, X Coffee Roast in Los Angeles wants 10 bags from us. This is their address. You can call them if you want. Basically phone number, like company details, so they know that we have real clients that are gonna buy our coffee when it gets to America. So really showing contracts, yeah. And if you don't have the contracts yet, sometimes even just an agreement where they a written confirmation that said, when this coffee gets here, I will buy this many bags at that price. Just as long as it's proof that the potential buyer said that should be enough. That should be enough as proof of sale. Yeah, but
Grace,
contracts will be better. Yeah.
does that answer your question, Grace? So, yeah, I think it does. Okay, thank you. So the reason I think that the reason I had initiated these conversations that I'm having It's a point that you continue to raise throughout this entire conversation, actually, and that's of the narrative behind Congo. So, like you said, a lot of people are scared. A lot of people think it's not safe. A lot of people just see it as like this poverty and misery and malnutrition and food insecurity. I think for me that was my biggest frustration. Because like you said, there's that narrative that oh Congo can light up the whole of Africa, Congo can feed the world. And then you Google it and it's just like you just see like humanitarian support and misery and I think it's a lot about changing that narrative, right? Like just speaking to you, I'm mind blown. Like a lot of this, I had no
Okay.
idea. I want to visit people. Don't know how. But in terms of the work that you're doing, besides just selling the coffee, is there anything additional that you do to kind of change the narrative? If maybe in terms of marketing, or is it just um, your buyers? Is the narrative around that, or you ask them to maybe when they're producing the coffee, you have like I know they usually put the country of origin, but like what more what not more, but what are you doing to change this narrative?
So we're definitely very intentional about our messaging. So everything we write on our website, talk about the coffee. We're very intentional about the words we use and also the photos and visuals we use. I think a lot of times it's almost expected you're going to show a bunch of poor Africans begging, and we never do that. We don't want to do poverty marketing. Sure there is poverty in Congo. Most Congolese are poor, but we don't want you to buy our coffee because you feel bad for us. We want you to buy the coffee because it's great coffee, and you know that it's sourced ethically. So we definitely very careful about the photos we take, the videos we select, and the stories we tell. Because again, I don't want people to feel sorry for me because I'm from Congo. That's the last thing I want. I'm very proud to be Congolese, and despite the challenges, I believe there's a brighter future for the country, and I don't want people to work with us because they feel bad for us. So I think being very careful with kind of communications, right? How do you communicate your product and where the product comes from? So we never want to do that poverty marketing approach that other people use. We definitely stray away from that. And also I try to as often as possible either write or appear on other podcasts or any media related activity where I get to talk about Congo. So I try to do that a couple times a year as well, so that again when they hear about Congo from the Congolese, because again a lot of times people that are here, and by here I mean like like North America, Europe, people that are here, they hear about Africa from non-black people. So they'll hear about Congo from like an American instead of a Congolese. So I think it's important that people hear about Congo from a Congolese. So I'm very proactive about writing about Congo and coffee, and appearing in media about Congo and coffee, so that they hear these stories from a Congolese and not somebody who, even if they care about Congo, their perspective will always be different because they're not from there. Yeah.
And so where in Congo were you thinking you moved to the US when you were 17? Where were you based before you moved to the US?
I didn't catch that. Can you repeat it?
You said you had moved to Congo when you were 17. I'm sorry, to the US when you were 17. Where in Congo were you? What would you say?
So actually, I wasn't even living in Congo. So I'm from Congo, but before coming to America, I was actually living in Ghana. That's why my parents were working. So my parents were working at that time. So I was living in Ghana, and before that, I was living in the Ivory Coast. But most of my family in Congo lived in Kinshasa and Kasai Central. But before coming to America, I was living in Ghana. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay. Does anyone else have any more questions? Can I mute yourself if you guys?
Great question. Robusta versus Arabica, which one is the best? In terms of quality, Arabica is definitely known for having higher quality. So if you go to boutique coffee roasters or coffee shop that talk about quality, more oftentimes they'll have Arabica. And part of the reason is again, if the coffee goes from a higher altitude, usually like the flavors are different. You can have more juicier, fruitier coffees and things like that. So I think it's globally, most people agree that Arabica probably higher quality and better flavor profile. But Robusta, because it's lower altitude, also has is actually it has a lot more caffeine in it. Has more caffeine in it. So in terms of that sense, if you're looking for a caffeine jolt, Robusta may just be better. And also Robusta is better, more resistant to pests. So there's actually a lot of people thinking that over the next few decades, there'll be more Robusta than Arabica because it's more resistant to pests and it has more caffeine content. And because of where it grows, it's less affected by global warming. Whereas the Arabica, because of where it grows, the altitude it needs and the volcanic soil and all that, there are more requirements needed for it to grow and be good. Whereas Robusta, not that it's easy, but compared to Arabica, it's easier to get a high volume of good Robusta. So volume and price, probably Robusta, but if you're looking for the highest quality, highest flavors, Arabica. Robusta also much cheaper, yeah, on average.
Thank you for that. I think going back going back to my topic, what are you talking about scale? What is it that you what is it like? Where are you currently at, and what do you need to get to the next level? I'm assuming you have mastered. Um, so what's that next step for you, and what is it that you need to get to that next step?
Well, we definitely want to scale, and for Mighty Peace Coffee, because particularly in America, we're the only importer that focuses only on Congo. My goal and dream really as a company, we really want to be able to over the next couple decades to basically be a key reason why Congo becomes one of the world's biggest coffee producers. Right now, globally, we're like number 26. But we really have and number one is Brazil, two is Vietnam, and we really believe that Congo could be top 10, even top five, because we have the land, we have the coffee, we have the people, we have the soil. We don't have the infrastructure and the marketing know-how and the commitment to growing that. So the goal really is what would it look like if in 20 years, if there's more people, we inspire more people to go to Congo, invest in coffee. What would it look like if Congo became a top five producing country in the world? What if we went from number five, went from 26 now to number five in the next 10 or 15 years? What would that look like? How much money? Because I mentioned coffee is a $400 billion industry. How much of that can go to Congo, right? So there's really more so being able to show the value of Congolese coffee globally, so that the industry can really grow and Congo can become known for its great coffee. Yeah. And to clarify, Griffin, we're not the only importer of Congolese coffee, but we're the only Congo only importer. So other people have, I mentioned they may have 30 coffees, Brazil, Vietnam, Honduras, and all that, and Congo will be one of the countries, whereas we're the only one that has only Congo. So because of that, in terms of volume, if for example we have like 10 containers of coffees just from Congo, the others that have 30 coffees, they'll have maybe one container from Congo, two from Brazil, and things like that. So in terms of volume, we're the only importer focused solely on Congo in America. Yeah. And in terms of the reason for the stigma, part of it is what I learned actually is that Congo used to be known for its coffee in 70s and 80s, but then they stopped investing in agriculture because of mining. You can make money much faster by digging and selling minerals. So there was a lot less investment there. Then conflicts popped up and things like that. So there was less investment there. So there was also a decrease in farmers working on coffee, and so that's part of the reason why the coffee production in Congo has basically went down significantly in the 70s and 80s. And if you have fewer people working on it over time, there'll be more quality issues. There's some people, when we tell them from Congo, we have coffee from Congo, they talk about quality issues like there's a defect called potato defect. Basically, your coffee smells like a rotten potato, and that's very common in the Great Lakes region. So it's more so in Rwanda, but there's also pockets of that in Congo and Burundi, even Uganda. So people are afraid, is there a potato defect? That's the first question that they ask. And also mold and things like mold that can happen if you have poor storage. And again, if people don't invest in coffee, you want to invest in mold, you want to invest in storage either. You'll have mold, the coffee will age faster. And because it's an agricultural product, like moisture content, mold, and things like that, they affect the final product. So because of poor infrastructure in Congo, even if the coffee is good initially, it can go bad very quickly. And people have had experience like that with Congo before, so they're afraid of that. Some of the people we worked with, they told us they bought Congo in the past and they had bad experiences. some told us they bought Congo in the past and like they got a bunch of rocks. So there's a lot of trust issues with Congo. A lot of trust issues that we're hoping to help rebuild. Yeah, a lot of trust issues, unfortunately. Yeah, exactly. Professional farmers, and we also provide them resources to. We do like free workshops to help them improve quality and understand, what to do to make sure the coffee is good as possible.
Um, I'm just thinking of
The rocks, yeah, I was shocked when I heard about the rocks. I was like, wow.
it's it's just like when you think of the whole process you mentioned, like of the import, 2.5 months only to find like that they had like it's just crazy. But well, yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking like on rocks, I guess what you mentioned quite a few challenges that I guess you face with doing business in Congo. But I think besides the key challenges of like infrastructure, what other challenges have are you currently facing? Is climate change an issue? Is that affecting production? Um, yeah.
A little bit in the sense that maybe if like the harvest will start in February, maybe you'll start in like mid or late February, so early February. So there's been delays in terms of like climate, more so not volume, more so in terms of timing. So maybe things are moved like a month or so, but not nearly as bad as other countries where literally like they just don't have any more coffee lands. Coffee is not growing where it used to because of climate change. Whereas us, the coffee is still growing, just more so the timing may change. So that's a challenge we are facing. But it's not, the reason why we're confident that it won't affect us long term is because, it's not nearly as bad as it is in other countries. So that's why we have to be mindful of it. But it's not necessarily something we look at as something to be worried about. It's actually an opportunity because it's affecting so many other countries. It's an opportunity for Congo to emerge. Like, you know what? If these countries are producing less, we can produce more, and that's part of how Congo can also kind of gain some market share. Uh, but besides that, I think that the main challenge really is just the operations I mentioned, logistics. You really have to want to work in Congo to work there because there's a lot of reasons to give up. A lot of reasons to give up, and really, I think the main challenge has really been kind of getting people to give Congo a chance. Because again, coffee is a big industry, a lot of money is involved, and it's relationship driven. So if you're new to coffee, you don't have the relationships. So even though we're working with 200 people now, that's people that we've really built over the past 4 years. So we will always be, somebody has been in coffee for 10 years, they by default have more relationship than we do, right? So I think it's just that the time it takes to be a relationship, it's a relationship business, and also getting people to give Congo a chance. Because if they don't know about Congo, they Google Congo, they won't get good results. So it's really about really helping tell the story of Congo, and because once people give us a chance, they try the coffee is good. One thing we have no worries about the quality of the coffee, just more so everything around selling that coffee. And which part of this distribution is costly? It's a great question. So it really all adds up. And I was joking earlier that everybody complains about how they don't make any money. But I'd say in terms of where there's probably like a big capital outlays, both at the farm level, to export a container takes a lot of money. But also, if you're a roaster, you have to hire like it's a skill, right? You have to hire people that know how to roast coffee. You have to buy the coffee roasting machine. It's expensive machine. You have to have distribution. So I think it's none of it is cheap. No part of it is cheap. But I'd say it's probably costliest if you want to start your own roastery, particularly if you want to start like in America, just because the cost to import it here and things like that. It's I think just the machinery, because us we have to spend money up front for the coffee, but if you're a coffee roaster, you have to spend money for the coffee and the equipment. Whereas us, we don't have as much to spend on equipment. So I'd say maybe if the further you are on the consuming end, the closer you are to the consuming end, I think it's probably more expensive to operate there. Your cost of doing business. And I don't know Ticia Mukuna. I've heard of her. I know of Cafe La Quinoise. I think it looks she's doing a great job. I don't personally know her, but I've heard of her, and she seems to be doing a great job of kind of building awareness of coffee in Kinshasa. So So I don't know her personally, but I've heard of her, and I think she's, from what I see, she was being great, doing great. Yeah.
Thanks for that. Yes, the time is like just gone by. Um, what? So the next question, I think I just have two more questions. You mentioned there's a lot of reasons for you to give up what what's in business. Why haven't you given up? Like, and what is that thing that keeps you going?
Yeah, I think it's part of it is I was tired of, is, it goes beyond coffee, right? Like, I enjoy coffee, but I didn't grow up, dreaming of working in coffee. So like I care about, doing great work in coffee, but I'm really more passionate about Congo than coffee. So coffee is a vehicle for that impact in Congo, right? So what's keeping me going? Just thinking that, like, if we all give up when it gets hard, then it's Congo will never emerge. Like, we will always be like the bottom of, we always be the bottom. So I just want to do my everything I can, so that I can try my best to bring something positive to the country, because I'm it's, especially if you don't live in Congo, but you hear how people talk about Congo, it's very frustrating. So I feel like if you're gonna criticize the government and things like that, you have to also be trying yourself. So I want to be able to criticize, so I have to keep trying. Yeah, so it's really, but yeah, it's because it's honestly, it's because of my commitment to Congo. I'm committed. I feel like I've had opportunities, to go to good schools and things like that. So I feel like it's my responsibility to give back, and I think by building a successful coffee enterprise would be one of my contributions. So it's really thinking of the bigger picture. Like, it's not about me, it's not about coffee. It's about kind of what I want to do for my country, and I think it's important to that's what keeps me going. Like, it's, yeah, even if we have a month where we have low sales, or maybe a client is upset, maybe the coffee's late. I think about the big picture. What would it look like if we're successful? So that, and what would that mean for Congolese coffee, Congolese people? Yeah.
Um, I want to give one more question to the floor before I ask my final question. There's no more question that will come to ask.
Sure. I also want to say I think it's great that in a chat with six people, two of them are called Grace.
Very smart lady. So I will assume that you don't have any questions. Give me a thumbs up.
Did you say something?
Yes, I said I'll assume that they don't have any more questions,
Okay.
so they
Yeah.
can just give a thumbs up if they don't have
Mhm.
any questions. We have like a minute now time. I know you're really busy. Okay. So yeah, my final question. I think I have so many more questions that are coming to my mind, but I really want to be yeah, want to respect your time. Where do you see Congo in the next 5 to 10 years? Um, like, what's your vision? I know some people you ask the question and they'll be like, "I go bonga stay," like there's no hope for us. Um, and obviously some things get lost of too. So where do you see things going in the next 5 to 10 years?
Congo.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm an optimist, so I hope there's peace everywhere in the country, and I hope that the government does what it can to encourage entrepreneurs to build businesses, because they will create jobs that will build the middle class. So I really hope we have peace and a stable government, and really, like, leaders that truly care about the country. Yeah. So that's my wish. That's my wish for the next few years in Congo. And one thing I want to add, I know you were, saying, how much you're learning and things like that. And I appreciate that, but I also want to commend you. I think it's great that you're the name of the show, Congo the Bread Basket. That's really part of also changing the narrative, that people know that is Congo really the bread basket. Because if somebody doesn't know, they Google it, they'll see, oh wow, Congo really has all this. So I do want to commend you and the team. I think it's great that, because that's the kind of messaging, even though it may seem small, just my YouTube channel, Congo the Bread Basket, but people are gonna see it, think about it, and maybe you may spark an idea in somebody Somebody may do research, somebody may travel because they're like, I didn't know Congo was the breadbasket. So I do want to commend you for kind of the name and kind of the what you're doing there, because it's really important. It's all part of the narrative, like, and it's the fact that you're Congolese is also a plus. It's like, a Congolese talking about Congo, and it's not a French person on France 24. you know,
Oh, thank you so much.
of
I
course,
really
yeah,
appreciate it. Thank you so much. And yeah, I do hope that it can, like, even if it's just a tiny incremental change, that narrative can change for the better. And I'm also like you said, you're an optimistic. I think I'm equally an optimist. Sorry. Um, and I do see a future because I mean our families are there, our heritage is there, and we really want to see, we really want to see the country move forward.
yeah,
And eventually, hopefully, I can also go back and do something,
yeah,
not just a keyboard activist.
yeah.
So, thank you so much for your time.
Thank
Like,
you.
I really appreciate it. I really learned a lot. Don't be surprised if you see like a long email or WhatsApp message with more questions. Because, like, yeah, like I said, now I'm thinking of conflict. Oh, I should have asked them, but I'm not going to go there. I'm not going
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
So, thank you so much for your
Thank
time.
you.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Bye, guys.
Thank
Thank you,
everyone for
guys.
tuning in.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
everyone. Take care. Bye bye.